pain is sometimes a sign of healing. And so that was the Lord killing off all of those fibroids. So when they were like, it's going to take blood supply from the baby, it didn't, because they calcified. And it was the most excruciating pain outside of a C-section that I've ever felt. Like, I went to the emergency room, like, I need you to see if my baby dead. And I literally said it like that, because I was just so upset. And the lady was like, welcome back to my channel. It's me, Regina B, and I am back with another video. How are you? I hope you will. I hope you in good health. I hope you feel blessed today. I hope you feel loved on. And if not, I'm here to love on you and hopefully make you smile and hopefully give you some information you never knew. So today I am going to be doing another People Also Ask. It seems like those are videos that people like. I get a nice amount of views on them. So, and I really enjoy doing them. And I think I said it in a vlog, but it's a way that I can share my testimony, share my experiences. And it's fun. It's fun to answer these questions to the best of my ability based on what I've experienced in my life. So today's People Also Ask is going to be, I'm going to type in fibroids and pregnancy. That's actually the third thing down. And let me just click on fibroids in the uterus. So uterine fibroids are non-cancerous growths of the uterus that often appear during childbearing years. The reason I decided to pick fibroids and pregnancy is because when I got pregnant with Harper, we found out that I had fibroids. I had, I believe, 16 of them. And then I had one that was like the size of a grapefruit. Surprisingly, I didn't have a lot of bloating. Like sometimes when people have fibroids, their stomach kind of bloats out like they're, pregnant. And I didn't have that. So I had Josiah, then 7 years later, I get pregnant with Harper. I had her on November 20th. He turned 8 on November 30th. And we found out that I had fibroids. We were going to a new doctor and we were going for our visit and going for our checkup. And something just didn't feel right. So they did an ultrasound, and upon doing that ultrasound, they discovered that I had fibroids. And they were just asking me questions like, you didn't have long periods? No. You didn't have any pain in your stomach or in your uterus? No. Like all of the symptoms that they have online that would indicate to a person that they have fibroids, I didn't have any of those. I didn't even though I had one that was the size of a grapefruit, I didn't have bloating. I don't know where they shifted to, but obviously they led with all of the complications that could occur. They at one point was telling me that I wasn't going to make it past 16 weeks. They were telling me that I could end up having to have an emergency C-section. They were telling me about all these different like prelapse of the cord, like if the umbilical cord, if one of them got on the umbilical cord and prevented nutrients to get to Harper, then she could possibly die. Just all these different things that were scary. They were really, really scary. During that time, it really increased my prayer life. I mean, I was praying, just praying like, oh my God, please let my baby live. Please let me have my baby. And I decided to read the book of Job. Like me and Job, we was like this. We was like this, me and the book of Job. I don't know why one night I was just praying and I was like, I'm about to read the book of Job. And it just comforted me. It gave me great blessings. I had some really great people around at the time. I was still working at the salon. So I was around my best friend, my soul sister, and she would just, pour into me faith and light. The owner of the salon, who had complications with her daughter, who at the time I think was 14, she was like, girl, they told me I was going to have my baby at 16 weeks, and here she is 14 years old. So you don't listen to that. So I had a lot of people around me that just poured faith into me. And I was very careful about who I shared it with. Anyway, obviously I had Harper. She is going to be turning 8, and I want to answer some of your questions because I know for me, I didn't know anything about fibroids, didn't know my family history. Like, we don't talk about stuff like that. So I didn't know. When they were asking me questions, I'm like, I don't know. She ain't never said. So Google, I went to Google, and that just added on to so much sorrow and despair because it was negative story after negative story, miscarriage after miscarriage. And it just really had me just afraid. And like I said, I just did a lot of prayer, just a lot of prayer. Phil prayed for me. Phil was in prayer, obviously, because he's like, no, none of that's going to happen, Gina. None of that. He's just very much the type, when he prays something, that's it. He's like, that's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And when 2 or more come together in the Lord's name, he is amongst you. And right here, this says, fibroids usually don't interfere with getting pregnant. However, it's possible that fibroids, especially submucosal fibroids, could cause infertility or pregnancy loss. Fibroids may also raise the risk of certain pregnancy complications, such as placental abruption, fetal growth restriction, and preterm delivery. I had Harper. The doctor that I had that was my obstetrician, she did not deliver Harper because she was pregnant with a baby of her own and had given birth like weeks before me. The lady that I did have, which I wish I could have switched to her, she was just so confident. She was like, oh, I've had moms with fibroids. My doctor, I was like her first patient to have fibroids and to have so many. Like, she would send me to a specialist and everything. She was like, let's hope this baby comes out before lunchtime, because I have a lunchtime baby I'm delivering that's on my books. She did. She came out at like 11. Her head was so perfectly round. That's how quick she came down that birth canal. Then, I returned to seeing my other doctor for my checkups, for my like 6-week checkup. And she tells me, she's like, well, you should not have another baby. Don't have any more children. You will put your life at risk. This and this and that. Anybody that I've told this story to or that knows me, I do not like for people to speak over my life. I do not like it. Do not speak over me. Speak over yourself. And so I was just like, okay, yeah, okay. She's like, I'm just, pressuring me with what type of contraception I wanted, if I wanted birth control, which I'm like, no, we just do that method. Like, well, no, you can get this. And I'm like, no, I don't want any of that stuff. I don't like how my body feels when I'm on birth control, so I know I don't want any of that stuff. So she's like, well, just warning me of all these risks. And I'm like, okay. So I have Harper. I'm thinking about that. I'm like, thank you, Lord. Like, my faith is greatly increased because that was a prayer that was answered. Every single obstacle that was thrown at us during that time, the Lord was faithful. He was faithful. And my baby is here today. So don't let people speak over you. You, your family, your husband, y'all pray, or your boyfriend, whoever, y'all pray first. Don't let anybody speak over your life, okay? No offense to anybody out there. Anybody can be a doctor. All you gotta do is be willing to go to school and have the money for it and be trained to be it. But there's only one God. Jesus said, anything that you ask the Father in my name, he will do. It's worked for me. That's all I'm gonna say. It has worked for me, clearly. 4 years later, I wanted to have another baby. And so we got pregnant with Ava. And I did show back up in there like, I'm pregnant. She was like, and I was like, because I prayed about it and my husband prayed about it and we want another baby. Got pregnant with Ava, and I did end up having delivery complications, but to be honest, I think it was her nervousness and maybe not. She did a good job, but we had complications. Hey, So all through my pregnancy, oh, and another thing, I went through like a very, very painful time when I was pregnant with Harper, and that is called calcifying. So all of my fibroids during the time that I was pregnant with Harper calcified. And I love and call the midwife, pain is sometimes a sign of healing. And so that was the Lord killing off all of those fibroids. So when they were like, it's going to take blood supply from the baby, it didn't, because they calcified. And it was the most excruciating pain outside of a C-section that I've ever felt. Like, I went to the emergency room, like, I need you to see if my baby dead. And I literally said it like that, because I was just so upset. And the lady was like, okay. And then Phil started chuckling, like, the baby ain't dead. And I'm like, oh, I don't even know. So with Ava, we were gonna do it vaginally, but with that, I had to get induced because they were saying that she wasn't growing past, I think she was, let's see, Harper was 6, no, Josiah was 8, Harper was 6, Ava was 5 pounds, and Grayson ended up being 4. So it does kind of, they do kind of mess with the size a little bit, but my babies were all healthy. They were all like miracle babies to the people that were like taking care of them, the nurses and stuff. I was like, not me. God's glory. So they were saying that, you know, the Pitocin was causing her to lose oxygen, which could cause her to have some type of brain damage. So she's like, do you want to keep going, or do you want to have an emergency C-section? Because it was just like a possibility that she could, you know, have that. So we tell them to give us a minute to, you know, get out of the room and give us a minute, and me and Phil pray. And then we were like, well, what do you want to do? And I'm like, well, I want to do a C-section. And he's like, okay, I want you to do that too. So we agreed. So we were like, okay, we'll do a C-section. They took Phil.
Just on Christmas, it's a candy cane for.
So they got him all ready for the C-section.
I ain't get candy cane.
Yes. So, you know, I'm having the C-section, and it's going along okay. But then I start to hear things like she's losing a lot of blood. Do this here, do that, more raised voices, more elevated voices. My OBGYN becomes extremely serious. And I love the fact that she took charge, and I could just feel in my spirit, I'm like, something's. And to this day, a vision came over me, and I just felt like whatever they was doing, it was like angels right there fixing it. I envisioned like 2 angels down there like, no. I'm losing blood. I guess I had some kind of uterine abruption. I can't remember the name of it. But Ava is delivered safe. And they put her on my chest, and I'm just kissing her, and I'm just, you know, crying like, oh God, thank you. And so then again, it comes with the she's losing blood. We need blood. And so then my husband is about to pass out because he just gets really scared and overwhelmed. And my husband, he's not like a man that shows his emotions like that. So that was just him being like, ow, you know, like not screaming, not crying, not panicking. It all just was like, I'm about to faint. So they take him out, they give him some air, they come back, they ask, I believe him, because I couldn't sign anything, consent, if, you know, if they could give me a blood transfusion, which was yes. So they gave me a blood transfusion, and then I had to immediately go into emergency surgery for my uterus to be fixed. And so I had to go to a completely different doctor. He was super cool. He was confident. I recall being in and out, and like and he was like flirting with the nurses low key, because I was in and out. And then he was like, I'm not going to give you a lot of anesthesia because you have your epidural, so you're not going to feel anything. So I wasn't out. But I was just like, but he was super confident, and he just fixed everything. And then I had to go to the ICU. And so I was in the ICU, and that was a hard part, because when I first went to the ICU, the only thing I cared about was seeing Ava. I'm like, where's my baby? And they're like, well, she can't come down yet, this and that. And I'm like, I want to see my baby. Like, I want to hold my baby. And they're like, well, Dad's with her and they're gonna come down. And I just remember being in that room like so lonely and sad and just praying and just thanking God and just praying. And then finally they were able to bring my baby down, and I just was holding her and just holding her, and feels all smiling and stuff. And then she had to go back. Then she had to go back to the nursery because I was in the ICU. And I remember I was just praying, like, and I kept asking them, I'm like, how long am I going to be in the ICU? I want to be with my baby. I want to go up to the nursery. And they're like, well, we don't know. It could be a few days. And I'm like, mm-mm. And so I was just, I was like, I was like, Lord, please don't let it be a few days. Please don't let it be a few days, Lord. So it wasn't. It was actually like 24 hours. And they were like, wow, you've had quite a turnaround and your room is available. It wasn't until the evening time though, but I did get to go back up into the nursery. I got my room, I got my baby, and she's fine. She's here. She's healthy. So obviously, I said her name. She tells me at my 6-week visit, do not get pregnant again. She's pressuring me. She's asking me what contraception do I want. I'm telling her again, I don't want any. I'd be like, well, I'll pray about it. And she would kind of be like, well, no, we need to know. And in that situation, I know that it grew her experience, but I hope that it blessed her faith as well. So obviously 2 years later, I got pregnant with Gracelyn. She politely refused my care. I went down to the Pete Center at St. Luke's, which is like a place for high-risk pregnancies. And I had this cool doctor. She was from New York, real confident. All the staff that was there was awesome. One of the nurses was a Christian, which I was like, oh. And, she would just ask me how I was doing. Towards the end of Gracelyn's, of my pregnancy with Gracelyn, I did start to, what I now know, have post-traumatic stress syndrome. And that nurse that was a Christian told me about it because I just broke down crying one time. And usually I'm like all bubbly and giddy. And she was just like, oh no, Mom. And I was like, I'm just so scared. Like, I'm scared. How is she gonna get out? And is everything gonna be okay? I said I had some internal scarring from my last C-section. And she asked me about my previous experience with Ava, and I told her. And she was like, okay, you're probably suffering from post-traumatic stress syndrome. And at first I was like, again, speak over yourself. But then as she was talking, she said, what you went through was a traumatic experience. You weren't expecting any of those things to happen. You went through some painful surgeries. You went through, being separate from your baby for a period of time. And she said, so this is, post-traumatic stress. You're remembering what you experienced and the trauma that your body went through. And I was like, okay. And so she gave me some stuff to do. But once I had a label, once I had a term for what I was feeling, I just took it to God in prayer. And we had Gracelyn. I had her via C-section. I have some pictures of my OBGYN beforehand, and she was like smiling. Like, she was so cool. I would suggest anyone going down there, and hopefully you can get her. And I had Gracelyn. Now, here's the kicker. I did have complications with her. So we had to go ahead and take her at, I believe, 30 weeks. They wanted me to get to at least 30 weeks. And she, because of the way that the placenta was on, I believe it was on a fibroid or in my uterus, she was not, at some point she stopped getting the necessary nutrients. So they were like, let's just get her to 30 weeks. And then we'll go ahead and just have you deliver her. So that's what we did. She came out, she was so tiny. She was 4 pounds and some ounces. And then they could not get, my placenta had attached itself to my uterus and they couldn't get it off. So long story short, I had to have a partial hysterectomy. And even in that, I just feel that like that's God's way of being like, okay, I've established your faith and you've proven your point. Now is the time to be done, no more. And so, yeah, I had a partial hysterectomy, so I cannot have any more children. I did have to grieve that. And Graceland's here. At first they thought that they were going to have to keep her longer because she was small and send me home. Again, I got on that. I got on my Jesus is on the main line, tell him what you want. And yeah, I got to take her home. At first it was like fear, like, oh my God. And Phil was like, that's not gonna happen. And then I started praying like, oh Lord, please, please let her come home with me. I don't want to leave my baby. And then just gangsta Gina, because then after that prayer, it was just like, you done slipped and bumped your head if you think that you're gonna send me home and you're gonna keep my baby here. Absolutely not. I will turn this mother out. Let's get into these questions, but that is my experience and that is my story. So let's scroll down and find the people also asked section. And I like to not look at it beforehand because I don't want to have the answers like pre-thought of. Okay, so the first question in the people also asked section, let me just show you. People also asked, is can you have successful pregnancy with fibroids? Yes, you can. I did. Also, by the time I had Graceland, I was 36. Yeah, because she's 2 and I'm about to be 38. Yes, you can have the successful pregnancy with fibroids. I would say go to someone who, you're not always going to be able to find a faith-based doctor, but that doesn't matter because it's your faith, not someone else's. But it's just nice if you have someone else that's like, make sure you go to someone who's experienced, who has had many successful deliveries of women, of babies, of women with fibroids. But yes, you can have a successful pregnancy. Can you get pregnant with a 10 centimeter fibroid? Yes. I don't know how big 10 centimeters is, but they showed me pictures of different size ones that I had, and one that was chilling in the back was like the size of grapefruit. I'll just say orange, just in case I'm not remembering that correctly, but yeah, you can get pregnant. And it even said when I was reading earlier that you can get pregnant with fibroids. So yes, you can. Can fibroids destroy pregnancy? In my case, it did not. They did not. Can I get pregnant with cervical fibroids? Yes, you can. You can. You can. You can. Do fibroids cause miscarriage? In my situation, it did not. In my experience with my 3 babies, I did not have a miscarriage, and I have not had one before. Do fibroids move like a baby? No. Can fibroids come out as clots? Not that I'm aware of. They didn't in my case. They didn't in my case. Do fibroids have a smell? I don't know because so when I had the partial hysterectomy with Graceland, she also removed all my fibroids. I think she might have showed me one, but I mean, it just smelled like, because I had just had a C-section, so it just smelled like a surgery room. Can a woman with fibroids give birth naturally? Yes. I could have given birth naturally with Harper, but what I do is I challenge myself. I tell myself I'm going to have a natural birth, like with Josiah and her. And then when you have to get induced, as those pains keep coming, because that Pitocin at some point, when they say, okay, this is the final dose of Pitocin, that's letting you know that, okay, you're going to have one big, long contraction. And once I get into that big, long contraction, I could probably only take it for like 5 minutes, and then I'm like, I need an epidural. But I could have, and I did have Harper vaginally. Can fibroids cause birth defects? They did not cause any birth defects in my situation, unless them being awesome and dope and like little tiny geniuses is a defect. But in my situation, no. And even with Ava, when they were saying that she was losing oxygen, it wasn't because of the fibroids. It was because she just wasn't ready to come out. And the Pitocin was causing her to lose oxygen. How do you stop fibroids from growing? I do not know. I believe they just get to a certain point and then they stop growing, because I had just different sizes. All of the 16 were just different. Like I had one that was the size of a rock, and then I had the big one that was the problem, and then I had just others that were just, you see them on your ultrasound. When you go get your ultrasound, they'll point them out. Because for me, with Harper, they had to count how many. Like every time I got pregnant, they had to just do a count and kind of locate all of them. Some of them were in the front of the baby, some of them were in the back. After I prayed about it, I just used to say to myself, they're just like little balls in there for the baby to play. Because one time we was looking at them, and was it Ava? It was one of them, but one of them like kind of kicked one, and I was like, but I didn't feel anything. I just saw it, and I was like, huh. Which fruits are good for fibroids? If I remember correctly, well, I'm gonna just click on this one. Like leafy greens, yep. Broccoli, it says cruciferous vegetables like broccoli, cabbage, leafy greens. I remembered because I looked that up too. Can you have a baby after fibroid surgery? I know you can have a baby with fibroids and you can have multiple babies with fibroids, but in my situation, after I had my partial hysterectomy and she removed all of my fibroids, I can't have any more children because of the partial hysterectomy, not because of the fibroids. So that's kind of a question that I'm not qualified to answer, because I had my partial hysterectomy. What kind of fibroids affect fertility? Again, my fibroids did not affect my fertility at all in my situation. And again, every time we wanted to have a baby, we prayed about it and we were in agreement. And that's how it's been with all of our children. I would suggest that for you too. What happens if you have fibroids? In my situation, nothing, but my sister-in-law did have them. She did have to have surgery, and it did cause like bloating and some complications with her, like bloating and her back hurt and some of the symptoms that they say people have. Can a fibroid fall out? I'm not aware. Can a fibroid burst? I am not qualified to answer that. What size fibroids need surgery? I'm not qualified to answer that. What happens to fibroids after pregnancy? Nothing. They're just in there hanging out, chilling, taking up space. But, nothing. In my situation, they calcified, which means they weren't needing any more blood supply. But I didn't need any. They didn't need anything. Can I eat eggs if I have fibroids? I did. Fibroids is good. Eggs is a good source of protein, especially when you're pregnant. What to avoid if you have fibroids? When I first found out, I want to see what this says. Well, I'm going to say, when I first found out, they were saying like pork and stuff like that. But it says red meat, high fat, processed meats, any highly processed foods, added sugar of all types, salt, high sodium foods, soda, excess calories. So, is chicken bad for fibroids? No. I love chicken wings. What the chickens do? What they do? They didn't do nothing. How can I get rid of fibroids without surgery? I can recall Googling that, like holistic ways to get rid of fibroids, and I wonder what this is, but none of them worked for me. Exercise, swimming, cardio, jogging. Yeah, and with Harper, I was very, very active. I wasn't back into running, but I walked, and I would put the incline like up real high, and I would walk like almost every day with her. So, and they was still in there. What exercise is good for fibroids? Any type of exercise is good for your soul, not just for fibroids. What foods help get rid of fibroids? In my experience, nothing that I did got rid of them until they were surgically removed. Can stomach exercise reduce fibroids? No. No. What's up, Philly? Okay, let me bring this to a close. I'm going to edit this down because this is almost 40 minutes. This is a long time. Can vitamin D shrink fibroids? And the last one is, can garlic shrink fibroids? Garlic is good for a lot of things. It helps fight off a cold. It just has a bad taste and it don't smell good. Vitamin D is very, very good. You get natural vitamin D from the sun. Look it up if you didn't know. Those sun rays beaming down on us give us natural vitamin D. Can vitamin D shrink fibroids? Likely not. I mean, in my situation, and I don't really like studies that are laboratory rats, predisposed. I'm not a rat. So, I mean, I know you can't test they do be testing humans, but I'm not a rat, so I don't believe that study is correct. And vitamin D is just good for you. It's good for your skin. It's good for your mood. It's a great source of, it helps fight depression, vitamin D does. Sometimes if you're vitamin D deficient, you can struggle with depression and anxiety. So that's why it's good to get outside and get into nature. But that was the last question. Oh, can turmeric shrink fibroids? So that is the final question. Y'all about to go? Okay. My son's about to go cash his check, his first check. So that was the last question. I hope this video has been helpful for you. What I will say is, there's two things. Don't let anyone speak over your life. Don't let anyone tell you that you can't do something, that something is impossible. It says with God, all things are possible. And if he blessed me, I'm still here. I'm healthy. My children are healthy. He'll bless you too. He doesn't have a limit on how many blessings he gives out. You're going to be afraid. It's scary. You're not going to see your way on the other side until you're on the other side. Yes, you're going to wake up and feel worried, even feel anxious. But don't be anxious and don't be worried. Pray on all occasions with thanksgiving and expectancy. That's scripture. Because God is faithful and he will answer your prayers. So just the more things that come at you and the more diagnosis that they give you and the more gloomy outcomes that they pound at you, you just go back with prayer. You just hit it with prayer. You just fight it with prayer. You just acknowledge it. I'm afraid. I'm unsure. They said that my baby was going to die. Is it? Lord, please no. Help me have faith. So that's all I have to say on that. Thank you for spending this time with me. You could have spent it doing anything else, but you decided to spend it with me. And for that, I am eternally grateful. And I pray that this has been informative, that this has lifted your spirits, and that this has just helped you to see that I made it out and I'm okay. And you can make it out and you'll be okay too. Okay? So that's what I want to leave you with. As always, I want to let you know on this beautiful fall day, you blessed, I'm blessed, we blessed.